Thank you. So for me, it's been a little bit of a mix. So previously, I just casually sought out people. But my connection with John, which has worked out to be the best experience for me so far. So that came about through a program that's being run by the Council of Textile and Fashion. So it's called CTF Curated, which is specific to like young and emerging brands. So through that, we do like a series of workshops and pop-up shops. But they've also like connected us with mentors. So it was great because they really specifically asked, what are you looking for? What do you need help with? And then connected us with industry people. So that's probably why it's worked out so well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I've got a question about the pop-up store. So is that through the program that you're doing at the moment, the mentorship, or is that separate? And how is that running?
Sure. So the pop-up that we're doing here in Brisbane is just, an independent one that we're doing, and it's to launch a collaboration that we're doing with Well Made Clothes, who some of you probably know. So we're doing more pop-ups in Melbourne with the CTF Curated program, which is great because it's Nico as well as a bunch of other amazing young brands. But yeah, the pop-up here in Brisbane is just our own. So yeah.
Why not? So you touched on photography as well as obviously Neko underwear. What's a creative sphere that you'd like to try that you haven't got to so far?
Well, there's just so many, but I feel like a little bit stretched already at the moment between the two businesses. So I think, there's enough going on in my life right now. So I got a drum kit last year and was like, I'm going to learn the drums, and it just didn't happen. So I think I realized that there's enough going on right now.
If you had infinite time, like if time wasn't a concern, what would you like to do?
I would learn the drums. Yeah. Does anyone need a drummer? I'm willing. I think music is definitely something that I, have dabbled with in the past and just never really had the time to commit to it. I don't know, I'd love to be fitter, healthier. Yeah, sorry, does that answer that? Cool.
You could bring the drums into like a Nico video or something.
I like that. Yes.
Bring the music side.
I could just like, mock it up. No. Don't get me started.
The next question's from Amway.
So I was just wondering, when you're talking about starting Nico and basing it around the ethos and the meaning of the business first and then building from there, did you have that same process with your photography business? Or is that more of a service kind of in your eyes as opposed to a business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, with photography, you're right, it is more of a service-based kind of industry. So I think the idea of a brand I think it's still relevant, definitely, but it's not as important, because the brand is very much yourself, and so I think you probably saw in the work we showed that, there was a pretty consistent kind of style. So I think photographers probably get known for their style and their style of shooting, so that, when a job comes up, it's, an art director will be like, we've got a particular kind of look in mind, so with that person, because that's their style, So I think developing that style is probably the most important part. But also you do get known for, how you work with teams. A lot of our work happens alongside TV commercials these days, which can be like a really challenging environment of having to share a space and share a limited amount of time. So you do kind of also get known for your personality, I suppose, and how you're able to like navigate, those tricky kind of situations and handle pressure and deal with that. So yeah, I think like the idea of a brand and what you're doing is still relevant, but it's very much about you as a person and your style of shooting. So, yeah. Yeah. So it was like a really big, scary change. I knew that we kind of had to do it, but yeah, in the beginning, you're like, where do you start, So the first step for us was we commissioned some research, and, we had certain criteria of what we were looking for, being obviously experience in manufacturing underwear. Also we were looking for like fair trade certifications, those kind of third-party certifications. So we commissioned some research, and they came back with, a short list of factories who maybe fit part of the criteria or, certain aspects. And, we kind of narrowed that list down, sampled with a couple of them, and, it was never about going for the cheapest option. I think in the end we went with the most expensive option, but, just working out who had the best quality and who we could see a long-term relationship with. So once we, had kind of settled on one place, I went over and met with them and spent some time at the factory meeting with them. And, it was great. They were so open and took us to see the fabric knitters and the fabric dyes, and we got to see, the whole supply chain. And it just felt really, really right. So, it was like a lot of research, but a little bit instinctual as well. So, yeah.
So do you feel like this was always your calling?
To make bras?
Yes. Underwear and photography.
Yeah. I'm gonna need the mic.
No. And second part of the question is, do you feel that everybody has a calling, and is it one calling or is it many callings?
Oh.
In, if you can answer that in less than 2 minutes.
It's a doozy, isn't it? Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if I would say that it was my calling. Like, it's not like I dreamed of making bras as a young girl. But I think, certainly there was, an instinctual part of the process that felt right. So maybe it was unconsciously my calling without me being aware of it. I was always very interested in, the visual, and was fascinated by, magazines and imagery growing up. So I think, it was always there. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not even a real answer, but I think it's hard to say for sure if it was a calling, but there definitely was an instinct that felt right, And I went through a lot of business ideas when I was in that space of looking for something before I settled on, I was like, that doesn't feel right. Once I came across the idea of Nico, I was like, okay, it feels, and it fit in a lot of different ways in my life, so it did feel right. I don't know if everybody has a calling. That's hard to say. I think, all I can say is trust your instincts, because I think that's really a really good indicator of whether something's going to work out for you or not, whether, because, it has to fit into so many aspects of your life, any kind of creative business is more than just 9 to 5. So if it doesn't feel right in the beginning, it's going to feel worse, after your 5th 14-hour day in a row, so definitely trust your instincts, and it's got to feel like it's the right fit for you. I think definitely it's a growing market, the idea of a focus on ethics and sustainability, and to offer transparency as a brand. That's not really the norm, it was very much, and maybe it wasn't the norm because people didn't care originally, or they weren't aware that there was terrible stuff happening. But yeah, I think definitely it's a growing audience, and more people are demanding it. I think, any kind of real change that we see in the fashion industry towards more responsible practices needs to be led by consumers, because I think, without that, at the end of the day, we all still need to make a profit, and we're businesses, and we need to run. So I think, for me, running the business this way makes me feel better about myself. So, I get that out of it. But I think for a lot of businesses, dollars are the bottom line. So unless there's a demand from consumers to see that transparency, it's not going to be addressed. So yeah, I think very much it needs to come from consumers, and it will happen, and it is happening, slowly but surely. But I think it's definitely there. So, yeah.
How much of your product range is or draws inspiration from the consumers, and at what level, and how do they engage with that and build brand with you?
Yeah. I think, like I mentioned, we have a really lovely community who are really engaged, and we have great relationships with a lot of them. So definitely, you know, we get a lot of great feedback on products as we go, and I take that on board. Doing the pop-up shops has actually been like a majorly valuable experience. You know, when you exist mostly online, it can be hard to really get that feedback. So, you know, when we have the pop-up shops, I'm really conscious of trying to be in store myself as much as I can to really like witness what's working and what's not, and see the product on a lot of different body shapes, and develop it that way. But yeah, we do get lots of like lovely feedback over time that we always take on board, you know, and we're always tweaking and adjusting things as we go based on what people are saying. So yeah, I think it's very important to listen to that community. I think I have my best ideas when I'm not trying to have ideas. You know, it's like when I'm in the shower or like driving or something. So yeah, definitely when I meet those roadblocks, you just have to acknowledge that you can't force it, and step away, give yourself some time, and always within a day or two, something, you know, an answer kind of presents itself. So yeah, I find just like trusting your mind and giving it a little bit of space has been the best strategy for me to not try to force an idea, and just let it come. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we really appreciate your time, man, and sharing and answering some of these questions. So, guys, could we give it up again for